The Unplayable Podcast is proudly presented by Qantas, the official podcast partner and the official airline partner of Cricket Australia. Once again this season, Qantas is proud to be flying Australia's cricketers as they take on the world. Well, it's a very good hello to you all from a late night here in Brisbane. We're sitting in the iconic Gabba seats as we recap day one of the second NRMA Insurance Ashes Test. England won the toss, batted first, got some runs, and so did Joe Root. My name is Josh Inglis, joined by Louis Cameron. And Lou, that was a pretty topsy-turvy day where both sides took the initiative at some points.
Well, and we can also all breathe a sigh of relief. You've buried the lead here. Matthew Hayden won't be doing a nude lap around the MCG.
Phew.
I was dreading my home test in Melbourne this year, thinking, actually, would he have done it? No, he wouldn't have done it during the Boxing Day test. He would have done it after SCG. He would have had to fly to Melbourne.
Yeah, fly back to Melbourne.
Exactly right. Won't be happening. Joe Root batted like an absolute genius today. I look forward to dissecting it with you, Josh.
Yeah, well, let's get straight into the selection news, I suppose, was the big one right off the top. We didn't know what Australia's team was going to be coming into today, so all eyes were on the toss and the warm-ups and the bowling run-ups and who's doing what, and they ended up leaving out Nathan Lyon, which was a surprise to many. Michael Neser came in for his third test in front of his home crowd. But as this day progressed, I reckon there might have been some in the Aussie camp wishing that perhaps they had picked their specialist spinner.
And England have admitted their surprise. Zach Crawley in the press conference just now said point blank that he was surprised that Lyon wasn't in the team. He also then, I'm not sure if it was a bit of shit stirring here by him, but he also said, I heard that Lyon had injured himself in the nets and that might be the reason why he got left out. I don't think, that is definitely not the reason why he got left out. That happened after he'd been dropped. Pretty honest interview from Nathan on Channel 7, said that he was absolutely filthy with the decision. George Bailey also gave an interview to us today, graciously after making a tough call, and he basically says that's what he wants. Like he's pretty happy, not happy, but like he expects players to be disappointed when they get left out. But ultimately, that's what the selector's job is to do.
And so, what was the reasoning behind leaving Nathan out?
Yeah, a little bit tricky. Like I felt like maybe George held his cards a bit close to his chest, but it did. The wording was kind of around the pace of these games, and when Nathan has been at his best in Australia, he's played holding roles on flat wickets, and these games, the first game certainly moved at a breakneck speed, and I guess they felt that he wouldn't be able to do that kind of holding role. I think the other thing is the pink ball. The fact it gets darker here earlier, so it gets darker quite early in the second session, when it kind of happens more towards the later in the third session in Adelaide. So that's a real factor. They think the ball swings more under lights. You look at the figures today, and this was the other thing. Crawley really in a subtle way did kind of have a few little barbs towards the Australians in his press conference. He kind of felt like. He said, apart from Starc, Australia's attack didn't have a whole lot of variety. I'm paraphrasing him, but he felt like he could line up the four right-arm seamers they had on top of Starc. There were certainly times where I reckon they could have used Nathan Lyon, and especially when it came to the over rates. So they ended up bowling 74 overs in the day, which is pretty pathetic, really. And it's going to cost them some Test Championship points at the end of it, I would have thought.
Yeah, well, Crawley was one of the ones who was back in the runs today after Mitch Starc started, as he has done so often. In fact, he's now struck in the first over of the innings in 4 consecutive innings. Pretty remarkable stuff. He had England 2 for 5. But then it was Crawley who got 76 and looked pretty good for the most part, didn't he? He put away the bad balls, and I was looking at his numbers. He left a lot more than he has done in the whole Bazball era. So that maybe a bit of a change of tact from Zach Crawley, but he was accompanied by Joe Root, who, as you said, got 135, not out. He's still batting tomorrow, assuming they don't declare overnight. And he was great with 15 fours and 1 6.
I think they love Crawley because he's the kind of player who can make a pair and then come out and play in a similar way. Yeah, he did refine his game a bit. It's a good point about him leaving the ball, but he's got a bit of a goldfish memory. That's happened. He's made a pair getting out similar ways in both innings in the first test, but then he comes out here and still plays aggressively. He's a real asset to him. He was the leading run scorer in the 2023 Ashes. There's a lot of hate for Zach Crawley. I think we might have said during that last test, he's made a pair, but he's every chance of going out and cracking a an important innings, and that really got them off to a great start, despite the fact they were 2 for 5. I think they could have been 3 for 7 if Steve Smith had held on to that one-handed catch off a Joe Root edge when he was on 2 very early. So, that to call it a chance was, probably not many other slips fielders in the world would have gotten a hand to it. But yeah, Root was fantastic. It's not a surprise that he doesn't have a poor record in Australia. 950s I think before today. I think before the series, only Virat Kohli among visiting batters had scored more 50s in Australia probably in the last 15 years or so. So the guy could play. The guy has shown that he could do it in Australia. He's just kind of got the monkey off his back. I thought the way he drove the ball down the ground today was really good. Driving balls on the up and playing really well.
I also looked at his wagon wheel because we know how much he likes to score down to third man in those sort of areas, and didn't actually score a lot of runs there today. He was playing the shot a lot, and I reckon he hit it to Cameron Green quite a few times on the bounce. Didn't score many runs there, but it didn't matter. In the end, he got to his 100 off 181 balls. And there were a few nervous moments for him in the 90s. A little yes-no with his partner, I think it was Ben Stokes at that time, and a little one that chipped just short of the fielder. But when he got there, he just had a real coy grin on his face, didn't he? He gave a little shrug as if to say, well, finally done it, sort of thing. And I think it was more relief than anything for Joe.
That's right. Will Jacks was the one, I think, who turned him back, coming back that second run that would have put him back on strike on 98. I think he ended up being 97 and having to wait another over or two. So, yeah, some hairy moments, in the running between wickets. We're obviously going to talk about the Ben Stokes run out, which was, it felt like a massive moment at the time. I think it really was a massive moment. England really could have been, maybe 4 down at stumps if they hadn't been able to get that wicket. And we'll go into detail in a second, but it's just worth pointing out how things could have been so much different. I think England could have been 4 for 350 at the end of play if Stokes had still been in. Took some absolute brilliance from Josh Inglis.
Definitely, yeah. At the dinner break, which was the second of the 2 breaks here today, England were 4 for 196, and then they came out after the break. Root was obviously flying, and then Ben Stokes was digging in. He was playing that very anti-Baz ball role that he does quite a bit. 19 off 49 he finished with, and he didn't really look troubled up to that point, but it was a little bit of a confusion. It was a hit and run into the gap, but Inglis, like a panther, rushed in from cover and then with one hand picked it up nice and clean and then threw down one stump. Really incredible stuff. I just want to also give a little nod to Michael Neser, who I thought did a really good job either side of that dinner break to tie things up. England were going at 4 runs, more than 4 runs and over heading into that dinner break. But Neser and Doggett actually started things off in that third session, and Neser's 5-over spell only cost 4 runs. I reckon that just tightening of the screws probably played a bit on Stokes' mind there, and then Inglis did the rest.
And that's a really good point, Josh, because one of the key things about that Root-Stokes partnership was only maybe 30 or 40 runs they put on in the end, but it just felt like they'd gotten through Australia's best stuff. They'd survived the spell. Starc came back quite late in that second session. We kind of thought, why isn't he bowling? The whole first hour elapsed. Yeah. Sorry, the whole first hour of the second session elapsed. He still hadn't taken the ball. It was good tactics by Australia, I think, because they were waiting for it to get dark, and that's when it becomes spooky and that pink ball starts to do things. Whether he would have done the same, been able to create the same pressure with a slightly newer ball when it's slightly lighter. Who knows? I'm sure they've done the research on these things. But second ball, he comes back on. He gets Harry Brook wafting at a wide one. Frustrating series so far for Harry Brook. But then Stokes and Root get through that tough spell, and they're probably thinking, we're facing Doggett, we're facing Neser. These are the 2 weakest members of the Australian attack. You're right, they just couldn't kind of break through. And Inglis, amazing work for a wicketkeeper on Ash's debut. This guy just has something about him. They've been looking for a reason to get him into the team for a while. They did it in Sri Lanka when Travis Head went up to open. He got squeezed out when Steve Smith came back from injury for, I think, the last 2 tests in the Caribbean, but he's been around the squad for quite a while as a backup keeper, but also the backup middle order batter. Finally, a spot's kind of opened up, And, it would be really interesting to see how he goes with the bat as well.
It was really reminiscent of another famous Ashes run out here, wasn't it? In 2017, Nathan Lyon ran out James Vince at a crucial point of that match as well. I think that was also on day one of that Brisbane test. Mitch Starc said he thought Inglis's was better. What do you reckon? Does Inglis have the edge over Lyon? I mean, Lyon's was from further out, you'd say.
Yeah, I think Inglis has him covered. Lyon, we always knew was a good fielder. Inglis is a wicket keeper, and the dexterity showed. He picked it up on his right foot with his right hand. He then took a step onto his left foot. That's normally when most fielders would kind of release it, it's like a pick up a one step, throw in the next one. But he kind of took that step to steady himself, and then threw off balance while on his right foot again and hit the stumps, with only 1.5 kind of stumps to aim at cover point there. So I don't know if the fact he's a wicketkeeper and doesn't have the natural footwork of a regular outfielder might have actually made it, a more complicated, but in some ways a more balanced throwing motion. Yeah,
potentially. I think we'll be seeing him without the gloves a bit more if this is the case, if this is what he can do.
And the other one was the Pat Cummins run out. Was that also at the Gabba, the one where he's diving?
It might have been Adelaide Oval against.
Okay, because I reckon that's still for me. That was an Ashes test. I reckon that was 2017-18. I reckon that's still the best run out I've seen in the Ashes.
Okay, we'll have to circle back to that. We'll let the listeners get involved with that as well. We should talk about the guy who had the gloves today. Alex Carey took a stunning catch running back towards the boundary behind him, I suppose you'd say. It was a skied ball from Gus Atkinson off Mitch Starc. Carey looked like he was making good ground to get there, and we know what a spectacular and athletic fielder he is. And then he's got Marnus Labuschagne coming in from
Marnus was also making great ground on the ball.
Coming in from 8 o'clock sort of thing and thinking, I can get this too. It could have been a terrible collision somehow.
It was a terrible collision.
It could have been a lot worse.
It could have been, yeah. And there was another one later where, not moving on too quickly from this one, but Marnus was coming in off the square leg boundary. Carey was herring towards the ball, and it looked like if he put in a dive, he might have been able to catch it. But because Marnus was so close, he kind of pulled out. But the one that got the wicket it was Gus Atkinson, wasn't it?
Atkinson,
that one. Marnus looks at Carey as he's running towards the ball, and so he's clearly seen that Carey's going for it. And I don't know how he could have possibly mistaken what Carey was doing, which is also sprinting flat out for it, as anything other than 100% commitment for the ball. Carey wasn't hesitating, and Carey's got the gloves on.
Right of way goes to the keeper there.
Yeah, exactly right. And then Marnus flings himself at the ball. Last minute sees him, tries to kind of protect himself and not knock out his teammate. But then, as Carey was still collecting full motion of the full control of the ball, he then kind of comes through with his arm again and nearly knocks the ball out. Carey did an amazing job. It has to be. I know we always go on about his AFL background, but you can't tell me that didn't help in that particular moment.
Yeah, that was a really great judgment of the ball over the shoulder. They say it's the hardest thing to do. And then Labuschagne was so relieved. It looked like he was going for a little bit of a smooch as well at the end, just to say thank you for saving me there.
It was cheek to cheek, wasn't it? He full on made skin contact. It's just funny what people do in the moment.
The third umpire also had a quick look just to make sure the ball didn't touch the wires of Spider Cam as well, which would have immediately ruled it a dead ball and would have been devastating for Starc and Carey. But I think if it touched the wires, it would have made the catch even tougher. So luckily, he said there was no touch and there was play on.
So that would have been a dead ball. Bowler has to re-bowl the ball.
That's right.
That's crazy. And I wonder if that would have been. I'm going to say, I'm trying to think, is that an issue for the broadcaster? Should they have gotten it out of the way? But, I guess they can't move the wires in the moment.
No.
They can move the camera, and if the camera gets hit by the ball or if the camera hits a fielder like it did with Henrik Nortje a couple of summers ago, that's absolutely on the broadcaster. But, everyone knows the wires are in place. This rule changed with the roof in the Big Bash, right? If you hit the roof at Marvel Stadium, that's automatically a 6 now, I think.
It was, and then it wasn't, and I think it might be back to... Anyway, we'll get our BBL experts on to give us the update there. But I do want to touch on Mitch Starc, of course. We have to talk about him. He struck in that first over once again. He struck in 3 different spells today, another 6-wicket haul, and it's his 3rd 6-wicket haul in the past 4 innings. Now, Lou, in his first 191 innings for Australia, he got 6 for on 4 occasions. He's now got 3 more in the last 4. He's just in the best form of his career, isn't he?
He is, and Australia could not have asked for more in the absence of Cummins and Hazelwood. I think we're sleeping on the absence of those guys. Like Australia, I think would have won that first test by a much greater margin if those two were bowling on those wickets. Like you're right. Like Australia just, he's bowling the best he ever has. Like his control through the middle overs. He's always had the swing with the new ball, but like what he's doing with the wobble seam now, how he's bowling at the tail, how he's putting it all together with the new ball. Like it's phenomenal stuff.
Really impressive from Mitch Starc, and who knows, he could get a 7th tomorrow if he starts off the innings. England were, you'd say, behind the game when they were 9 for 264 when Bryden Cast became Starc's 6th wicket. But then it was Joe Root and Jofra Archer who put on a 61 unbeaten run partnership for the 10th wicket. It's Jofra Archer's highest score of his Test career, 32 not out with 2 sixes. There were some sort of strange tactics, you'd have to say, from Australia. They looked like they didn't want to take that last wicket so they didn't have to face a few nervous overs at the end of the day. All the fielders were right back on the rope for both batters, not just Joe Root but also for Jofra Archer. And then they only came up again right at the end when Neser bowled that final over. So why do you think it played out like that, and do you agree with it, I suppose? Really
bizarre kind of scenes. Like I think Crawley in his press conference said that they won the last hour and that those two batted for an hour. We probably need to check the timestamps back because it did feel like they did bat for an hour. But
they batted quickly too, though, didn't they?
Well, they batted quickly, but also Australia bowled very slowly. I reckon it probably was about an hour, and they've only bowled about 8 overs in that hour, which is just pathetic. Like anyway, that's a thing for another
podcast.
day. Yeah, but so Australia, clearly they were moving a lot of fielders around. They kind of got the helmet out really slowly out to Travis Head. He kind of ran from mid-off to then go into short leg, and they changed it when the batters changed strike. Australia didn't want to bat under lights, and England did want to bowl, and they weren't going to declare. I mean, great parallels between Edgbaston in 2023 when Ben Stokes did declare on Joe Root. He was on 118 not out, and Root was absolutely braining him that day. And they left a few runs out there. They ended up losing the test by 2 wickets in the final session of the game. So who knows if this might have been a better decision not to leave Joe Root stranded. But yeah, like it did look like Australia was still trying to get Jofra Archer in particular out. It was just they were trying to do it very slowly. I think their ideal scenario would have been to get him out, in the last 10 minutes of the day so they didn't have to bowl. But yeah, I mean, surely you just want to get that. This is where it can kind of backfire. It's like, well, yeah, we don't want to take that wicket too quickly, but this is what can happen. And it probably made it England's day in the end. That those last, what did you say, 50 or 60 runs?
Yeah, 61 runs. Yeah, and I mean the partnership could have ended right at the start, as you said. There was that moment between Labuschagne and Carey after an Archer sky ball, and Australia were great in the field today. Really didn't make any errors, and maybe that was the only one. Maybe a little bit of lack of communication, not allowing Carey to go and dive for that ball. I mean, how different are we talking about this game if England are all out for 265 and then who knows what Australia would have done that last half an hour.
And this was also vindication somewhat of England's selection. Jofra Archer is better than number 11. And Cast is batting at 10. He's got a very good first class and test batting record. Atkinson's got a test 100. And Jax has been brought in to kind of
he opens in T20 cricket.
Well, exactly right. Yeah, he's as good a batter as anyone. So that probably not bowling at number 11, you're bowling at normally a number 9. So that's an area Australia it would have been a factor in Michael Neser's selection, I think, for this test. Gives Australia's lower order a bit of a better balance with him at 8, Starc at 9. So they're going to need some runs from him potentially tomorrow.
All right, Lou, I think 27,000 here today at the Gabba got their money's worth, and many more on TV. It was a very even day. We're just giving the honours to England on day 1 here, but we know how quickly these pink ball tests can turn. Please join us again tomorrow as we recap day 2 here at the Gabba.